Alrighty, everybody, we are on a roll. So let's continue on. We're on a really good roll here. Let's move forward. We are going to go straight into chapter 5. So let's move in that direction. I'm going to share my screen with you, which I should be doing in just a sec here. And there we go. It should pop up in just a moment for you. Okay, so chapter 5, and in chapter 4, don't forget, we just talked about our internal, parts of our assessment and strategy. In chapter 5, and I'm going to blow this up so it's much larger. We turn it into slideshow mode, which we all love and appreciate. There we go. We're talking about, again, our directional strategies. And there we are, directional strategies. All right, so we talked about our external analysis, what we should do last week and the week before, basically since our class started. We looked at our internal environment, what we can do. What can we do internally to make things quicker, faster, better, easier? What can we do to have buy-in from our employees? What can we do to increase our efficiency, our effectiveness, etc. And today, I shouldn't say today, I should say now, we are going to also look at directional strategies, leadership, what we want to do. So let's continue on with this conversation of the strategy of our organization. And again, this is your strategic planning process. You see this every single time I pull up a PowerPoint. So we are at or under the strategic planning, situation analysis, directional strategies portion in red. Again, the process for developing directional strategies. So every PowerPoint presentation chapter you have, you will see a process for doing whatever it is we're doing. For chapter 5, it's for developing directional strategy. So step 1, review results of your situational analysis, your external analysis, your service competitor analysis, and your internal analysis. Step 2, develop a statement of mission, then a vision for 3, then a value statement or goals or guiding principles for 4, and 5, develop strategic goals based on those critical success factors. So directional strategies, what are their point? Why have a directional strategy? So directional strategies give an organization its identity. It represents who we are, where we are going, and how we work. The mission, the vision, and the values are paramount here. So in your mission, you want to clearly articulate or tell people what we do. What do we do? What is it that we are here to do? What does our healthcare organization do? What does our healthcare facility do? What does our long-term care facility do? What do we do? Currently, right now, what do we do? That's your mission. Your vision. What are we going to do in the future? What is our hope for where we will go, right, in the future? Where are we looking to be? And our values. What are our behavioral norms, our beliefs, our ideals? What makes our organization unique? What makes our organization different? What makes our organization what it is? Okay, those are our values. So the mission, vision, and values of our organization are central to our strategic, excuse me, I'm trying to talk too fast, I think. Our strategic planning process, either that or I just got tongue-tied. So all the strategies and goals must support these directional strategies, right? Obviously, that's what we're looking for. So we reach a consensus and document what our organization currently does. What do we do? That includes our profile of today, our current products, our current services, our current customers, our current philosophy. That's all current. Then we research consensus, we research and document, right? We research the consensus on that. We document it. And we look to see what we all want to do in the future. Right? So the profile of tomorrow is our hope for the future. That's our vision. So what we currently do is our mission. What we want to do in the future is our vision. And then, of course, our fundamental values is, of course, our values. Those are our profile of expected behaviors, our beliefs, our ideals, stuff like that. And here you are. Here's where you see it. Vision, profile for tomorrow, hope for the future. Mission, profile of today, current stuff. our current philosophy, our current customers, our current products, our current services, and values, profile of expected behaviors, our beliefs, and our ideals. So again, the mission is what we want to do. You need it clear and concise. You need it concerned with who we are today, not tomorrow. That's vision, so don't get it confused. So an organizational mission is a broadly defined but relatively enduring statement of purpose that distinguishes us from everybody else. So again, we want it to be clear and concise. We want it concerned with what we're doing today. We want it to be very specific about what we do. We want it to be enduring. And we want it to be unique. You can't have the same statement as everybody else because that is not unique, right? So how do we, write up a mission statement? Well, you can always use your strategic thinking map. And as you notice, we have a strategic thinking map in every chapter for everything. So you could use it. And you should use it when you're trying to come up with things like this. So you have a component and then you have your keywords reflecting that component. So for example, target customers and clients. What keywords would we have for targeting customers and clients? Principal services delivered, geographic domain of the services delivered, specific values, our explicit philosophy, and other important aspects of our image and distinctiveness. You would be looking at the component and then coming up with key words to reflect that component. So, for example, target customers, who do we serve? Right? It could be the greater Detroit area. It could be, who are your target customers, right? What services do we do? Are we a primary care facility? Are we a minute clinic? Are we a, emergency department? What are we? Geographically, where do we reach? Where do our service areas go to? Where are the lines of the folks that we reach, etc. Okay. Vision, what we want to do. Again, the vision is an expression of hope, a description of what we want to do, right? What we want to do. Characteristics of a vision. We want it to be inspiring and challenging and about excellence and show us in the best light possible. We want to be able to also empower our employees first and our customers second. What does that mean? It means that we want to show the community that we are taking into consideration the community on a whole, of course, but also that we're taking care of our employees, that we want to make this a good place to work, that we want to make it satisfying, that we want people to think of it as their, their career, as their calling, as their vocation, right? And when you think about hospital systems and doctors and things like that, you, of course, want people to think that. You want everybody to say, yes, I love working here. This is the best place to work, right? So comes alive in the details, not in the broad generalities, meaning, the details are important in a vision, memorable, provides guidance, and not limited to the present, right? Because if you're limited to the present, that's a mission, not a vision. And again, we could use our strategic thinking map. So the component, clear hope for the future, challenging and about excellence, inspirational and emotional, empower employees first, and memorable and provides guidance. Okay. So again, values, what we want to do. Values are the ideals organizations and people stand for, the fundamental principles that, along with our mission, make a organization unique. So what do we stand for, right? So characteristics of values, it reflects the organization's culture. It's consistent with the desired image, acceptable to stakeholders, which is important. You cannot choose values that are only going to be suited or suiting for certain people. You want it consistent and acceptable to your stakeholders, all of your stakeholders, right? All of them. You don't have just a group of all of the same people. They're not just clones of one another, right? So it has to be acceptable to all stakeholders. Consistent with the vision, ethical, of course, and it needs to represent a clear commitment. So again, you could use your strategic thinking map for your value statement, and you can take these components and make keywords reflecting those. So desired behaviors, organizational norms, shared beliefs, shared assumptions, explicit philosophy, and fundamental principles. If you are, for example, a Christian hospital system or a Catholic hospital system or a Jewish hospital system or some kind of hospital system that reflects a certain kind of value system, right? And typically that's anything that has a saint in front of it. So St. Michael's, St. George's, or Mary Immaculate, something that reflects a religious, undertone. Those values are going to be different from systems that don't have any religious undertone, because they're not going to be backing, or they're not going to be doing things like maybe a tubal ligation, getting tubes tied, or abortions, for example, right? So your value statements are very important. It shows who the organization is. And, when you're going out to pick your career, make sure you know who your organization is, because your values, of course, should align with your organization's values. If you are a deeply religious person and you don't believe in something like, for example, abortion or something like that, you can't work, or it would be very difficult. You can, but it would be very difficult for you to work in an organization that is, you wouldn't exactly work in Planned Parenthood, let's put it that way, right? So you have to, make sure that your values align with your organization's values. It's very, very important. You can't, a lot of people who apply to, let's say, PETA, for example, right? And PETA is very active in the protection of animals and not wearing fur and doing all these things. Those are a particular type of people that they hire. That's a process that you would go through. They only hire, a certain, specific group of people based on does this, future employee or prospective employee, do their values match ours? So you'll see that these value statements are really important, not just for the organization, but for you in choosing where you want to work. Don't ever take a job and tell me that you didn't look at their mission, that you didn't look at their vision, and that you didn't look at their values. Because if you tell me that, I'm going to tell you, well, good luck. I hope it turns out well, because you need to make sure that you match them as well as they match you. It's not just all about, getting a paycheck. Sometimes it is. Sometimes, you have to take what you can get. But if you could avoid it, and that means looking now, where do you want to work? Research the places, look them up. Don't just take whatever you take because you had to, because you didn't plan in advance. Make sure you plan. Okay, critical success factors. So those are things that the organization has to accomplish if it's going to be successful, right? So they're similar for all members of our group, of our strategic group, that is. And they do vary from one service category to another because, being successful in different things takes different, factors. So usually there are 4 or 5 things that must be achieved for success, and our strategic goals should address the critical success factors. So this is just showing you, how to set goals. So strategic criteria for goals: address an external issue, a trend, or a force, concern a stakeholder, help achieve a critical success factor, draw on a strength or fix a weakness, fit with the mission, be consistent with your values, and move the organization toward the vision. Goals for statement criteria then are controllable by the organization. Measure them as much as you possibly can. They can be achieved in a reasonable time frame and have a reasonable level of stretch for the organization. Meaning you can't just set a goal and pick a goal and say, well, that's it. It must be reached no matter what, even if it's unreasonable, right? Because that's not going to get anybody anywhere. So this is what takes us into the process of momentum creation. So we want to create what's called momentum. We want to be able to set a goal and then have everybody be able to work towards that goal in a way that's really kind of seamless, that isn't that difficult, that kind of flows naturally. So organizations, like people, have too many goals sometimes. And when you have too many goals, you lose your focus. You don't really do any of them because you have too many of them. So again, I love these Forbes magazine quotes, which is why I say if you guys ever have the opportunity to get any of your information for discussion or anything else from Forbes magazine, I applaud you for that. I think it's wonderful because you get a lot of these folks who are just, experts in their field. So here's the quote: one worthwhile task carried to a successful conclusion is better than 100 half-finished tasks, right? And I always joke with my husband. I say he is the master of start it but don't finish it. I'll do it later. So if we start a project and it's not finished by the end of the day, he is okay with that. I cannot stand it. If I start something, I have to finish it. It has to get finished or it will eat away at me. But I think that's a good thing. I mean, maybe I'm to an extreme, but that's a good thing because we have to be able to recognize that once you start something, you must be able to finish it. So for most organizations, 4 to 6 goals are the sweet spot. You want to have enough to where, you're keeping everybody engaged in it. There's 3 types of goals: input, process, and output. Okay, developing action plans. So they're developed for each goal. So goal number 1, statement of goal. The action necessary to achieve the goal, the start and end time for that goal. So when do we want to have this goal accomplished by? The unit or individual responsible for carrying out the action, and the strategic planning participant responsible for reporting at the next strategy section. So what goal? When are we going to start it? When do we want this goal achieved by? Who's responsible for doing it? And who's going to report that it has been done? Our last section here is governing boards. So we talk about governing boards. They're very important, actually. It's a very important group that's involved in, all of the strategic decision making and the strategic direction of our organization on a whole. So board members should be regularly informed about our strategic goals, the process being made in their accomplishment, fiduciary responsibility. We have a financial responsibility to keep the organization afloat, right? Stewardship of assets, et cetera. It's all very fancy talk for, you don't want somebody on the board of directors who has the fiduciary responsibility, or who has the responsibility of dealing with our money, and they're stealing it. That would be a problem. That's a quick way to end up in what I like to call the red. We have to be in the black, meaning we're at least breaking even. If you're not for profit, at least breaking even. You're not losing money. If you're losing money, you can forget about it. But everybody really needs to turn a profit, because if you are not turning a profit, then you're not a viable business, and it's not going to work. So it doesn't matter if you're for profit or not for profit. You still need to make a profit, because you need to pay your staff. You need to pay your light bill. You need to pay your rent. You need to pay your overhead, etc. Right? So strategic mode: collaboration with management to develop a vision for the future. Generative mode engages in shared creative thinking to make sense of data available to decision makers, because we are really looking at a lot of data to help us to figure out what's going on, right? So, we need something valid. We need something verifiable. It can't all objectifiable. It can't all just be subjective. Here's what I think, right? And the more you go on with your degree program, and the more education you get, the more you move up the educational ladder into your master's degree and your doctoral degree, you'll realize that everything needs to be referenced, and nobody cares what you think. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's not. It's business. You have to say, here's my conclusion based upon this objective data that I have analyzed. You can't just say, well, here's what I think. Right? Because you come into a boardroom, you come into your job, and you say, well, here's what I think. And people are going to say, so what? Who are you? What's your specialty in it? How do you know that? Right? Same thing with our discussions. And I know I say this every week, and I'm going to keep saying it. We need to make sure our discussions are referenced. Everything you say needs to be referenced, because you technically can't say anything at all until you reach a certain level of scholarly achievement. And then you could start saying things, but even then you are still putting out works and documents and publications that reference other people and things, right? Because we're looking for that consensus. We're doing the same thing here when you're talking about governance and our modes applied to board of directors, right? We need to make sure that we're looking at the data, and then we're able to analyze that and then share creative thinking, etc. And your progressive mode engages in debate, discussion, and learning from one another, which is wonderful. Of course, that's what we want to do. 5 behaviors lead to effective boards. So engage in constructive conflicts. Constructive being the key word there, especially with the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer. Constructive conflict, pick and choose your battles, right? Pick and choose your battles. So if there's something that you really believe in, that you believe can really help the organization achieve its goals, that's when a constructive conflict is reasonable. That's when you should engage. But you should avoid destructive conflict. And that kind of sounds like the same thing. But what it means is, if you know that something is going to do more harm than good, don't say it. Don't do it, right? Work together as a team, know the appropriate level of strategic involvement, and address decisions comprehensively. Managing strategic momentum, evaluating directional strategies. Are we not doing some things now that we should be doing? Are we doing some things now that we should be doing? I said those backwards, but are we doing some things now we should do, but do in a different way? Those are all tongue twisters, by the way. Are our organization's mission and vision unique? Is our mission relatively endearing? Do our mission and vision allow for innovation? Do they allow for expansion? Is our scope of operations clear? Do our mission, vision, and values fit the needs of our stakeholders? Do our fundamental values make any sense? Are our strategic goals moving us toward achievement of our mission? Are our strategic goals moving us toward achievement of our vision? Have we addressed the critical success factors? Is the image of the organization what it should be? So here's some practical lessons for Chapter 5. Organizations need a carefully constructed statement of purpose or mission. Without such a deliberate statement, the organization is likely to experience a mission creep or drift, which is no good, right? You don't want it to drift away from, you don't ever want to drift away from what you're supposed to be doing. A vision statement is equally important to provide direction and hope for the future. Value statements provide tangible evidence of the behavioral norms that are expected for everyone. Value statements are, in effect, guiding principles as to how the mission and vision are to be accomplished. Directional strategies are difficult to formulate, so leaders are often tempted to hire a public relations firm or a consultant to help draft those. However, if you do it yourself, you can build a better understanding and communicate expectations to all your organizational members. Not to mention, you'll have a stake in that because you did it. Top-level executive buy-in is an absolute necessity, or it's not going to happen. Strategic leaders need to understand the factors that are required for success in their industry. Board of directors have a critical role, of course, in the formulation of all of these directional strategies, and healthcare organizations should carefully consider the expertise needed to effectively set policies and appoint board members who possess and expand the skills required for success there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen there, and I'm going to put my camera back on here so we can move over. So that was Chapter 5. In a very concise manner, and I hope that everyone felt that it was extraordinarily concise. It talked a lot about mission, vision, and values. So those are things that typically people don't have an issue with. They're typically able to get the mission, vision, and values quite easily. And that was our Chapter 5 discussion on directional strategies. And now we're going to go ahead and we are going to move forward.